We all know that driving under the influence is against the law, but not everyone understands the consequences that it can bring. It was on the night of June 15, 2013, that Brianna Mitchell's car decided to break down on the side of the road outside Burleson, Texas. That night, three kind-hearted individuals pulled over to try to help Mitchell out. Holly Broyles, of 52, Shelby Broyles, of 51, and youth pastor Brian Jennings, of 41, never knew what they had coming for them after stopping to help out of generosity. While the four innocent individuals stood there that night, they were struck by and killed by a Ford F-350 that was driven by Ethan Couch, who was 16 years of age. On that night, Couch had been out drinking with friends all night, and when it came time to blow on the breathalyzer, he blew a .24, which is 3 times the legal limit. Couch was originally supposed to receive a 20-year sentence, but ended up walking out with 10 years of probation. And I guess that's what kind of treatment you get when your family is wealthy and they can afford the best lawyers in the country. Now 3 families have to live without their loved ones for the rest of their lives, while the killer relaxes poolside, enjoying the rest of his summer. This is all according to New York Daily News website. Good evening. Tonight we will be talking about some facts about drunk drivers over the last few years. We'll be going over consequences of DUIs, facts of drunk driving, and life of victims or victims' families after the incident. By the end of my speech, the audience tonight should realize how much of these incidents end up ruining the victims' families and facts of the incidents of drunk driving. This should help you realize that drunk drivers should be behind bars. Consequences of DUIs can be seen from 2 different directions: the view of the offender and the view of the victim. There are some consequences for the offenders, which can include fines, license suspension, or even jail time. These are things that are just temporary most of the time, but when it comes to the victim, it is totally different. The consequences for a victim could include hospitalization, permanent injury, or even death. This is something that will stay with the victim permanently most of the time. This is what needs to be considered for the offender when he goes to trial. These are the consequences of DUI, and we'll be looking to see what the actual facts and causes of DUIs have been over the last few years. In the past few years, many American citizens and their families have been affected by drunk drivers. According to MAD.org, 50 to 75% of convicted drunk drivers keep driving after they have had their license suspended. It is also stated that a drunk driver has been on the road drunk an average of 80 times before they are caught for the first time. Can you imagine the possibilities that could have happened in those 80 times? The last thing that I would like to bring up is that drunk drivers cost the United States about $132 billion per year. That amount of money could really be used to develop something in our country. Now that we have heard some of the facts about drunk driving, we'll see how the victim or the victim's families have to live after the incident. It can be difficult for a victim to bounce back from an accident caused by a DUI. The victim can actually end up with a severe injury, permanent disability, or the worst, death. This can be mentally challenging for a victim to have to live through after an incident. According to AnnoXavier.com, a victim can end up with a severe cause of post-traumatic stress disorder, which can cause flashbacks, nightmares, and even trouble concentrating. If a family was to lose a significant other, it could tear that family apart. These are the kinds of things that can happen to a victim after an accident caused by a DUI. We have seen what the consequences of the DUI are, and we also went over facts of DUI and how the victim or the family of the victim could be affected. Now that we know all of that, we can see the facts after a DUI. Does this make you sick? This is something that thousands of families have had to live through over the last few years. This is something that you would never want to go through, correct? Well, now that you know what this can cause, maybe you can prevent someone from driving drunk if you're in that situation.